Ivan Pavlenko, From Family to Family, Chapter 1, Part 8, Hello Pyatigorsk, read by Natalia Buzova. The resort city of Pyatigorsk, where our school arrived, was then well to the rear. In the evenings, it sparkled with electric lights. No blackout, nothing there reminded us of the air raids that we had been tired of in Poltava. The city seemed to be seething with its life. Young people were walking along the streets. Wines of various Caucasian varieties and qualities were sold and drunk in numerous snack bars, kebabs, and cellars. There was a lot of greenery and flowers everywhere, and the outskirts of the city were simply buried in gardens and vineyards. The most beautiful and crowded was the central street, which ran through the whole city from the railway station to the flower garden, the best city park. There was two-way traffic. The street was divided by an alley with green spaces, lawns, and benches for rest. Despite the noisy diversity of the city streets, it was not difficult to determine that the war rumbled, crushed soldiers' bones. In the crowds of townspeople everywhere, there were recovering front-line soldiers in hospital clothes. Pyatigorsk, one of the pearls of the Caucasus, the country's most unique health resort, became a huge hospital city during the war, with tens of thousands of the wounded. We all treated those injured soldiers with respect, but among them were, to put it mildly, those who disgraced the title of frontline soldiers. They voluntarily left hospitals for the city with the only purpose of drinking and then fiddling around, finding women of easy virtue. Sometimes they united in rather close-knit and dangerous groups, and in a front-line manner swooped down on eateries and drinking places, demanding a free treat. And if they were refused, they beat the saleswomen and took alcohol by force. Calls for help were often had at the school, and we sometimes had to intervene. In total, about 2,000 cadets had come to Pyatigorsk. Such a massive invasion of the military men was unusual for the resort city, but its maiden half greeted us with enthusiasm. After all, we were young and future commanders. Looking ahead, I will say that many of us, having gone through this war, returned to our sweethearts and started families. We were placed in two military towns, Upper and Lower. Our 4th Battalion, about 700 cadets, was stationed at the foot of Mashuk Mountain in the former sanatorium of the People's Commissariat of Defense. It was the upper town. The rest of the cadets go to the lower town, which was located across the Podkumok River in the barracks of a military unit that had gone to the front. Mashuk is a picturesque mountain, 910 meters above the sea level. It was an integral part of the Pyatigorsk landscape, its exotic zone raising to the sky and attracting tourists and holidaymakers. Everything there was connected with the name of the great Russian poet Mikhail Yuryevich Lermontov, who had died in a duel at the foot of the mountain. Mashuk really looked, as Lermontov had written, like a shaggy Persian hat. It was all covered with thick shrub hair, and all at the top, like a bald head, was bare. It was difficult to wade directly to the top through the thickets, and there was no need, since a ring road wrapped around the mountain from the bottom up. Climbing it, you could admire the wonderful landscape and see the memorable places. From there, on a clear morning, the highest peak of the Caucasus, Elbrus, was clearly visible. It was also visible from the balcony of the first floor of our barracks. It looked as if there was a stone's throw distance to it, but in fact, more than 100 kilometers. Covered with eternal snows, it seemed to be a huge sugar pyramid, shining under the rays of the rising sun, with either amber or bluish sheen. In general, Pyatigorsk was surrounded by 5 mountains: Mashu, Beshtau, Sheludivaya, Железная, and Ritsa. Pyatigorsk, Kislovodsk, Железноводsk, and Essentuki were the best resorts in the country with natural curative mud and mineral waters. So we also ended up in blessed places. Wonderful nature, clean mountain air, and abundance of fruits, especially southern ones, apricots, peaches, grapes. But alas, there was barbed wire around our training camp, and you could get to the city only by leave and while patrolling the city streets, parks, railway station. Of course, there were unauthorized absences through the hidden holes in the fence, but we were severely punished for them. Classes were conducted according to a dance program from morning till evening. Much attention was paid to formation training, as the October holidays with the traditional military parade were approaching. It was necessary to bring our bearing to perfection, and the commanders did not spare either us or themselves. In the companies, we learned the sacred war song, which had already been roaring across the country. And then, one Sunday, our battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Kanevsky, decided to take his battalion on a first date with the city. We began to bring full shine to our appearance, hemming white collars, shining boots with a brush, cutting hair. I remember that we walked on the asphalt of the central street, family like in a parade, measuring our pace. There was a brass band ahead, and in the middle, a consolidated company of 160 singers. The sidewalks were literally full of people. There were especially many girls. To be honest, many of us had already managed to make pleasant acquaintances, and our coming to the city had previously been declassified through the channels of lyrical Morse code. White handkerchiefs flashed welcomingly over the heads of the people. Exclamations were heard from everywhere. But then the orchestra fell silent, and like a powerful avalanche, the song burst out. Get up, the huge country. Get up to fight to the death with the dark fascist force, with the damned horde. This song was sung for the first time in the city, and we put into it all our hatred of the German fascist invaders. Our faces were stern, and sinning was sacramental, and the sidewalks froze. Women's handkerchiefs reached out to their eyes. People were crying. After all, many families had already received killed in action notices. And the song, like an alarm bell, rankled in the heart, called for revenge. May the noble rage flow down like a wave. There is a people's war, holy war. And today, 48 years later, I cannot calmly listen to this song. It seems to me that the whole country rises in bloody smoke and fire, in some kind of frantic, heartbreaking female scream. Memory revives the past, the hot summer of 1942, an unequal battle at dawn near Mashuk, the faces of living and fallen comrades. The repertoire of our battalion also included a cheerful Ukrainian song, Guys and Harness Horses, which we sang in a combat mode. Smiles especially bloomed on the sidewalks when the chorus sounded with a brave whistle. 1, 2, 3, Vibanam, a black-haired girl picked berries in the garden. Cheers of approval and shouts were heard. Well done, Ukrainians, although at least half of us were Russians. The song about the Red Commanders was also popular. Our School of Red Commanders is forging dashing leaders for the country, ready to go into mortal combat for the working people. Dashingly, with the whistle, we performed Tachanka. We were born to make a fairy tale come true in the battle for the homeland, in the battle for Stalin and others. A good formation song inspires a soldier, enriches him morally. With the song, he breathes more freely. It is easier for him to see service in the army. It cheers up, inspires, calls for deeds. I would like to say the same about formation training. Now you can sometimes hear idle talk about excessive commitment in those days pre-war to formation training. They say that victory was forged not with a ceremonial step, but with military equipment and intelligence. And in my opinion, we have always needed and will need a smart, physically developed, and well-trained soldier ready to carry out a combat order in any situation. A soldier is good only when he looks like a soldier. In his appearance, as in a mirror, one can see his inner dignity, value as a warrior. Content and form should be blended together. We started the ZIS-5 and GAZ-AA vehicles, as well as military tractors, Ворошиловец, Коминтерн, Комсомолец, and also HTZ and STZ. If necessary, the graduates of the school could quickly retrain into tankers, and in 1943, the school became a tank school altogether. There were workshops in the lower training camp where the cadets underwent practical training in machine repair, autogenous welding, vulcanization, turning and sluicing. A more thorough practice took place at the Minutka station, where the school's repair base was located. On various training areas and roads outside the city, we mastered driving cars, took a driving test. Along with technical training, we underwent combat training in the amount necessary for a combined arms platoon and company commander. We were taught tactics, topography, chemical service, demining, communications, fire training. Various weapons were studied: a rifle, an automatic rifle, a revolver of the Nagant system, and a pistol, grenades, hand and easel machine guns, company and battalion mortars, a flamethrower, and anti-tank rifle. General concepts were given about the 45mm gun and the T-20 light tank, which we even drove in. A significant number of hours were devoted to practical training in combat training, especially in tactics, in shooting, in acquiring combat control skills. At the foot of Beshtau mountain, the school had its own training area where firing from various types of weapons was carried out. In January-February, we went to winter camps for 2 weeks. We lived in dugouts and fought endless battles with the enemy, crawling in the snow and getting warmed up at the local school in the village of Zalskaya. We also practiced as a mass physician, built defensive positions, made transitions and rapid motions for 5-10 kilometers. The school's ties with the local authorities and the population of the city were gradually strengthened. On May the 1st, a big sports festival was held at the stadium. It was attended by hundreds of athletes from the city and the school. Meetings of cadets with Komsomol members of the city were planned and held, as well as joint educational events with concerts, presenting flowers and gifts. The school was awarded the Red Banner of the City Party Committee and the City Executive Committee for Success in Training Personnel for the Red Army and active participation in the public life of the city. The credibility of the cadets among the local population was very high and was primarily due to their exemplary behavior. We patrolled the city and ensured proper order everywhere. Residents often turned to us for help and protection from any crooks, drunkards, and hooligans. Of course, our cadet life consisted not only of studying in classrooms and repairing workshops, of tactical exercises and formation training. Almost all of us had a girlfriend in the city, although we rarely met her, mainly during weekend leaves and while on patrol duty. Sometimes the girls themselves came to the military town and communicated through the barbed wire. Life made itself felt, even in the conditions of war. In private time, especially on Sundays, we wrote letters if we knew where and to whom. We recollected relatives and friends, thought about their fate and about the fate of the motherland as a whole. But most often we gathered in groups in front of the wire, in full view of the city residents, and to the accompaniment of Cadet Zovsky's guitar, we sang our favorite songs: Light, Dark Mountains Are Sleeping, Favorite City, Sing Off, The Sea Spreads Widely, and others. Our company singer, Zovsky, sang most of them to the accompaniment of the guitar. He had a wonderful tenor, especially sincerely he sang the song, "For some reason, comrades. For some reason, comrades, I can't stay at home. I'll go out for a walk around the native city. Well, the southern night, my dear. Tomorrow we are leaving for distant lands." Chorus. Trees accompany us on the road. The boys surround us in a crowd. The girls look at us with interest. We are young sailors. I'll be back, Curly, sooner or later. I will wait for you by the old chestnut tree. If you don't forget, come again. If you don't stop loving, still love as before. If, Curly, you forget me, if we part, you will stop loving me. All the same, you come to the old chestnut tree, and as before, dear, shake my hand. That was our favorite song. Zovsky sang the lead, and then we joined and sang the chorus all together. Sometimes we talked, argued about the war. We painfully experienced every setback at the front, and vice versa. Each success was regarded as the beginning of the long-awaited counter-offensive and the complete defeat of the German fascist invaders. We seemed to be all that was missing there.